If you're not on a constant journey to improve your customer experience, then you really should be. In this podcast, we're going to cover off on the following things: how and where to improve your customer communication, how to remove debt chasing and how to streamline your payment process, and where and when to use technology to help you streamline your customer journey workflow. Justin, welcome to the Sideshow podcast.
Hey, Matt, thanks for having me.
All the way from sunny Utah.
Yes, it is definitely sunny and good time to be outdoors.
Or it was what it was called when I was there. It was Utah because there was just so much snow and everyone was just at the top of the mountain.
We have the best snow on earth, and I can say that because it's on the license plates. So
is that right?
You know, that's right. It's a true story.
That certainly outshines your neighbors over there in Idaho. What are they? The potato state? Is that right?
Yeah. We don't talk to those guys. Just kidding. Now.
It's a great part of the world. So, mate, welcome to the show. We're here today to talk a little bit about customer experience, communication, some payment-related things. You're representing a company called AllSet, which essentially is a well, actually, why don't you give us a bit of an insight into what AllSet is?
Yeah. So I'm Justin Clegg, founder and CEO of AllSet. We're a customer communications and payments platform. And what makes us unique is that we're specifically designed for home service providers and home service businesses. So, knowing you've come from the trades, obviously, and have had great success there, we're paying very close attention to the gaps and sort of the disjointed experience that's taking place in the trades, and setting out to standardize and make a more seamless customer experience across the board.
Yeah, sure. So for you listeners and viewers out there that are interested in this topic, actually only back at episode 347, we did a podcast with Dave Edward called Creating an Amazing Customer Experience. However, I feel like in this episode, we could probably speak a little bit more to some of the tech advantages that come as a result of, I suppose, the fast-moving world that we live in the tech space. I know pretty much everyone today is au fait with apps and programs and softwares, and in truth, many of them probably end up with a bit of technology paralysis, as I like to call it. But I suppose what we're talking about today is, the whole concept around customer experience, communication is something that is foundational when it comes to business. It's not necessarily, it's the same conversation they would have been having 200 years ago, but now we've just got a few more tools that can help us streamline certain things. So, yes. I think very often, like we see this a lot, and in truth, I can't think of any business on the planet that couldn't do it better. But, when you talk about customer experience, like just defining that journey and really making sure that you are treating it as a journey, not a destination. There's always things you can do to improve. Like, even yesterday, I got an email from a client saying, well, we weren't told we were going to get billed for that right away. And I was like, oh, okay, good point. Like, I just expected them to know, so then like something we can change in our process to fix it, which we did. But like, there's never an end to it. Right. And the big thing I see, and a lot of the guys out there that'll be listening and watching this, and I know from experience, because our customers have these pain points, that whole communication side. I've said it a million times on the show, like communication will solve 99% of the problems. And in truth, it will resolve so many objections, so many apprehensions that clients have, just if you can just communicate to them, and that ripples across every department of the business, from finance through to marketing, through to delivery, through to all sorts of different things. So I'm really keen to hear, I suppose, a little bit about how that tech journey has evolved, that whole space. It's fast moving. There's a lot of programs out there that are available, and without, I suppose, getting people bogged down with specific tools, like if we can just keep the journey and I suppose the whole concept of what we're discussing here like, let's just communicate that so people get an understanding of it. And of course, guys, we do want you to go check out AllSet. So there'll be links and everything to the show notes there. So go check it out. But yeah, I'm really keen to hear from how this evolves from someone on the ground who's really, basically built a business around it.
Yeah, look, our point of view is very simple and straightforward. We think home service professionals are very good at their trades. They're very good at what they do. They're not so strong when it comes to sales and marketing and the communication side and the technology. And our unique perspective is that we've learned this the hard way. Home service professionals don't want to download another app. They don't want to have to learn new software and new technology. They don't want to spend 3 months implementing some new system. Yeah. And so we've built our entire platform and product around simplicity. And I think the thing that makes us the most unique is that everything that we do is messaging based. So there's no app to download. Everything is built out through automated text messaging and communications. So when you're in the field, you're busy. Our job is to quickly connect to your scheduling system or the CRM. And then we handle all of the communication, whether that's an invoice that needs to be sent, a tip that needs to be requested, a review, a referral. All of that's done through text. So there's really no app to download or anything to learn. And we make everything really personalized. And that's kind of what makes us really unique and what has led us to grow as quickly as we have in the last 5 months.
So I suppose speaking to like taking what you just said then and placing that into a customer experience perspective, like very heavily text orientated, is this just an evolution of, the way that we operate and the way that our customers are expecting us to deliver communications today? Is it through text message? I mean, it's interesting that there's no other, like, is there emails and stuff that go out as well, or is it just purely text based?
So, I mean, look, we talk to our family and friends through messaging channels, and preferred messaging channels, at least in the US today, really are SMS and iMessage. SMS is a very antiquated, archaic technology. I mean, it was built in the 90s. There's nothing too complex about it. Yet, as we talk about, it's the channel, it's very ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And people, whether you're 16 and getting your first phone or you're 65, it's an app that people are familiar with and comfortable using. So we know that most consumers would prefer, I think it's 74% of consumers would prefer to communicate with a business through texting. And we also know, if you think about the other data points, a text message has a 98% open rate. So if you or I look at our phones right now, we've read most of our messages. We're pretty much caught up. And you contrast that to email, and that's like a 7 to 10% open rate. So we're very bullish on, empowering and enabling businesses to unlock revenue and to communicate with customers and to handle payments all through texting, which is convenient, it's faster, it's more efficient. And, we're not getting caught up in, missed messages or, miscommunication, which can be very costly for the business.
How do you handle the whole, I won't say spam situation, because you presume they would know you're coming out to service your, their home or whatever it is as a technician. But, I mean, I would rarely open a link in a text message, just for the reason that it could be anything, it could be some sort of malware or whatever. So how do we navigate these situations? I mean, these are things, I suppose, that from a customer point of view, they're conscious of. Like, I get text messages all the time from just completely unjustified, sources, and I never open them. I don't even look at them, So how do we navigate these obstacles?
Great question. We're very intentional about privacy, about spam, and really protecting the customer relationship. And so, we adhere to things like TCPA, which is the Telecommunications Privacy Act. And really, it all comes down to context, personalization, and really the conversational design of these messages. So, we have a very talented team that spends a lot of time thinking about what is an appropriate message that should be sent on behalf of a business to a consumer.
Mm-hmm.
What's the relationship of the consumer to that phone number? What is the sort of the length or the time of day or the cadence or the personality of that message?
Mm-hmm.
Can we personalize it? So can I use Matt's first name in the message and maybe even include an image of the brand or the logo or even of the technician that I'm using? So there's a lot that we can do to quickly build trust so that that it's within context, within 5 minutes of an appointment being completed or the technician leaving your home, AllSet's then jumping in and taking over on your behalf and giving you all of the insights, the feedback, the revenue that's being captured. So
yeah, sure.
I think those are just some things we do to sort of mitigate the spam effect of just blasting people at scale.
I know with we send out a text message campaign yesterday to our database, and and it happens pretty much every time we do it, although we send out quite a lot of communications, but we still get people come back and go, how did you get our number? And it's like, take me off this, or I'm gonna take you to the department of blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh, sure, whatever. I'm like, I mean, I can send them a screenshot where they have subscribed, which I typically do, but like, I suppose that whole people are, I suppose, getting more and more wary of these, unquantified SMSs and emails that are coming through, privacy laws.
Statistically, 1 to 5% of any customer's messaging are going to want to opt out. It's not their preference. They'd rather you call them or email them or just don't talk to them at all. We always provide the option to opt out, and so that's really key.
That's kind of key in general, isn't it? The customer experience, providing options, right? So
yeah, you have to let customers talk to you in the way that they prefer.
Yeah.
And thankfully, the trend and where we're moving is, we want people to talk to businesses in the same way that they talk to family and friends. So the consumer preference towards messaging is growing, and that's a better experience than picking up the phone and answering it from a random unknown number, right? And so we're very proactive in how we think about, what that relationship should look like. And, for the most part, when there's context, people expect it and they appreciate hearing the insights. I'm on my way, or, hey, we're finished up. Here's your link to pay, versus paying cash or something like that.
So I'm curious, like, what's your, like, if we were to have a communication, at a high level glance, let's say some of that customer experience from a communication point of view, like how would that ideally look when we're trying to refine and improve that process from the point where somebody first engages with us through our website when they might be interested in a service or whatever, to the point where then they book a job and then we send the technicians out and then the job's completed. Like what are some of those things that people should be considering to include within their journey?
Yeah. So our story of kind of how this all started, it was really simple. It started off with technicians coming to us saying that their customers are tipping them and leaving tips. And they wanted easy ways to increase tips. And so I can't speak to, culture of tipping, in Australia or other countries outside of the US, but predominantly in the US, we're talking about a $40 billion industry that is the size of, it's basically 2 NASAs that really is geared towards restaurants and salons where it's expected. And what we've kind of scratched our heads on is, coming out of a post-pandemic, global economy, why would, a plumber or house cleaner or a landscaper or a window washer be any less deserving of receiving a tip for a job well done? And so kind of by accident, we discovered that, Americans will leave a $25 tip after, when prompted on AllSet. That's led to, $1.5 million in payment processing volume for tips alone in just the last 5 months. And we're sending all of that back to these technicians who really appreciate it, right? We have inflation, gas prices have gone up. So it's become, that was kind of one of the starting points. And then naturally you can move into a bunch of other experiences that are just as meaningful.
Just a funny concept. I imagine there's a lot of like Southern hemispheres out over listening, watching this. We're going, wow, imagine if we got tipped. I mean, I'm sure most of them are thinking once someone sees my invoice, there's no way they're going to be tipping. In fact, we should probably be tipping them.
Well, and we've kind of addressed and solved for that too. So let's say, you have a really high invoice. Well, why wouldn't you be able to offer, flexible payments, right? So break down that invoice into 4 even payments over the course of a period of time. So now you're getting into kind of lending and banking as a service.
Yeah.
As far as paying the invoice, what does the experience look like today? Well, it's cash, it's check. We see a lot of Venmo in the US, and it's just inconsistent. And so why not send them a text message if you're in Latin America, WhatsApp, and be able to tap a link, complete the payment, and then manage all of your payments in a really easy place.
Yeah, it's funny. Is America the only country in the world that does checks? I'm just curious because I'm sure we did. It must have been. I mean, I've been running my business for 11, 12 years, and we've never had a checkbook.
It's we run into crazy stories all the time. You'd be so surprised. Where businesses have, $10, $20, $50,000 in accounts receivable.
Sure.
They may have checks that are sitting, on their kitchen counter that they just haven't had time to run to the.
I mean, you say that. I've got one right here from.
Yep.
This is a check. This is from some dividends from a company that I own stock in, and I'm like, this has been sitting on my desk for 8 months, and I have not been to the bank to cash it because it's so bloody inconvenient.
Yeah. So cash, cash is really a big competitor, right? Where we reference that as sort of the disintermediation. And so as companies grow and scale and become more digitally mature, we start to see them investing in digital technology that allows them to, accept payments. And so then the next problem is, okay, well, I have these ridiculous credit card processing fees. They're super high. I'm getting killed, with all these payments. Let me either go back to cash or, find a new provider so I can lower those. And so we're very in tune to some of those challenges today.
Yeah. I mean, there's been such an evolution in that space, much to the bank's demise, I'm sure I mean, back when I was doing when I was a plumber, we would have these handsets from the bank, and you would it was ridiculously expensive. I think we had to pay $500 a month for the unit, to own the unit, and we had to pay like a 5% fee on each transaction or something insane. It was just out of this world. And then all of a sudden, Stripe comes into the picture, and bang, see you later, bank. It's like, I don't need this anymore. I'll just take a payment through my phone with this little gadget that plugs into the top of it, and
that's right.
Job done.
And even thinking about the next wave, right? Stripe is really expensive.
It is expensive.
I haven't checked their last valuation, but I think they're a $90-100 billion company.
Yeah.
And
you need to have a serious amount of transactions to even be able to negotiate your percentage, because
they don't have to.
We put a lot through Stripe each month, but it's still not enough. And I speak to them, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, we're going to bring our fees down. They're like, oh no, you got to get to this bracket first. I'm like, far out.
Yeah. So we've we figured out ways to, either partner or build kind of our own PayFac, in-house. And so that allows us to even lower those processing fees further. And ultimately it goes back to the mission of our company, which is unlock revenue for these SMBs and home service providers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a big thing. Like, you talk about unlocking revenue. I mean, the amount of businesses that I speak to today that still have still chase debt. And I just think it's just mind boggling to me, because I don't know. It's that for some reason there's some business out there that still think it's okay to go to a job and then send an invoice, 6 weeks later. And like, I mean, I've told this story a million times on the show. We had an electrician out here that just put some data cabling into the place here where we set the office up and stuff. Sure. And it literally took them 2 months, maybe more, 2.5 months to send the invoice out for the job. In which time I had another electrician out who came and changed some halogen lights to LEDs, and came out, did a job. I signed off on it on his app, finished the job, paid him right there and then. Like, it was just done. I was thinking this, like, and it's funny for me, right? Because like, obviously in this space every day. And I just think, man, it was only a $700 bill. Like, he should have just done the job and paid. I mean, just like, what's it doing to his cash flow? I just couldn't believe it. But
yeah. It's important to really help streamline it, to become PCI compliant. You have to, you really have to think about ways to, reduce that time to pay, because otherwise you're just sitting on, all of these accounts receivable, and that can be a problem as a business owner.
So I'll tell you some of the areas which I see, like, communication being paramount, and then you can add on top of it some things that I probably don't see. Because in truth, like, most of the things that we deal with are really like helping, like, because obviously we run a marketing agency for tradespeople, contractors, and like a lot of what we do is in the space of communicating marketing related things. Maybe not marketing related, when we also have a custom CRM built out for tradies and contractors, where we help them communicate, again, journey related things. So it might be, hey, we're sending Bob out to your house. Here's a link to his bios, what he looks like, blah, blah, that kind of thing. And back sends text message. And then when they finish the job, probably similar to what you guys do. Hey, would you mind leaving us a review? Blah, blah, that kind of stuff. But like, from a communication point of view, like, we see, like, it's almost like this revelation when we go, hang on a minute, why don't we just introduce a couple of text messages here, an email here, the beginning of the journey. So when somebody comes on board, thank you, your job's been processed. You're going to hear from our dispatcher shortly, like something simple like that. And people go, oh, okay. So at least they know what's happening. Otherwise, they're in that situation where they've made contact, and then there's this awkward silence between the time where, you know what I mean? Like, it's just little touch points, which just make such a big difference from the customer experience perspective, because and for the better part, most of that stuff can be automated, because it's exactly the same message you'd be sending pretty much in every single instance, except for, like you said before, maybe entering their names and that kind of thing. But like, so we see it from like, okay, well, how can we streamline, the sales sort of process? So, okay, what's the journey look like? They've come to you, great. Have they booked do they need to book a meeting with you? Okay, cool. What does that look like? Is it like a calendar link? Is it a Zoom link? Is it a phone call? Who can they expect to speak to? In what time frames? Is it the next 5 minutes, next 10 minutes? Great, cool. So then, okay, now the job's booked. Is there a notification to say your job's been booked? Because so often people, like, they'll be like, oh yeah, we've just booked them in. I'm like, do they know about it? And they're like, like, it's almost like there's so many people still think it's okay to call up and go, hey, listen, we've got a technician, we're going to be sending them out tomorrow. And they're like, well, hang on, I'm working tomorrow. Like, how about some, like, we booked this in weeks ago. You've got to give it some heads up, So like, letting the customers understand, okay, well, giving them enough time, of course, to plan things, So then there's that side of it. And then, of course, when they get on their way out to the job, which you touched on, hey, Bob's coming out to your house. He'll be here in the next 30 minutes. This is his profile. This is what he looks like. This is his interests, blah, 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 so on and so forth. And then, then there's the whole payment processing side of things, which, of course, they should be doing through apps. And then, of course, that should be automatically sent to them, maybe text message. I don't know. But like, if it's an invoice, sign right here, payment receipt sent to them straight away. And we do that for, again, selfishly, from a marketing point of view. We want to make sure we've got their email contact, because we want to be able to communicate with them looking forward. So a lot of our guys run scheduled maintenance programs and things like that. So you can kind of, plug them into their system and get them into their communication cadence off the back of it. And then in the follow-up, if they've had a good experience, you want to know about it. If they've had a bad experience, you want to know about it even more. So, what does that look like? The follow-up, situation. In most cases, it's like crickets, but just asking your customers if they had a good experience and figuring out how you can make it better, like that's really valuable. So that could be a text message, or it could be an email, or it could be both. It doesn't really matter. But
you're spot on. Yeah, I mean, as you go through this customer journey, it's exactly the experience that is expected. Yet just it's not something that is delivered on today. And so really think of us as kind of the platform that sits on top of your CRM. That's very good at sort of the messaging and communications. It's more personalized.
Yeah,
you can control the timing of when those messages go out. And that just kind of makes it all the more professional and personal.
So, I mean, aside from that journey that I just spoke there, are there things that I've missed? Like, are there other things that people should be considering?
No, I think you recapped it well. So, we think about the world in pre-appointments and post-appointments. Mm-hmm. And so from a post-appointment perspective, there's a lot that can go on. So it's capturing feedback, insights, reviews, and improving online presence. We have referrals, so we'll prompt, your customers to refer a family member or friend.
Oh, yeah.
Which helps you, ultimately keep the phones ringing and attract more business.
And when you set those campaigns up, are you typically like remunerating or incentivizing the referee? Or is it just goodwill?
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So there's typically a discount or a percentage or percentage off of that service. And then you mentioned it, kind of that maintenance or that remarketing, so what happens, 6 months down the road, 3 months down the road when you need a follow-up on that service. And we're building a really exciting data layer so we can now present upsell and cross-sell opportunities. So if you received a plumbing service, here's also an opportunity to, get an HVAC offer, sent at a pre-season time. So a lot of crossover in different verticals and industries as well now.
Yeah, it's really important. Like there's so many, I mean, we spend a lot of time helping businesses like plant their flag as the go-to specialist in a specific niche within their industry. Like if they're plumbers, it might be hot water heaters, or it might be block drains, or it might be pipe relining, or whatever it might be, right? Or if they're sparkies, it could be solar. But like often, like their apprehensions when we try to, I mean, obviously we know that it's easier to get them in the door if they're an expert in a certain thing, where they have the opportunity then to upsell and cross-sell and actually inform people about the other things that they can do. But the reality is, from a marketing perspective, it's really hard to get you in the door if you're trying to be everything to everyone. So that conversation is really familiar to me, like helping like people understand, well, you've got to, like, you can't just expect people to know everything that you do. Sure, you're a plumber, but like perhaps not everyone understands that plumbers can, service hot water heaters, do your block drains, fix your water filters, and do all those other things, right? So like getting your foot in the door it's really, I mean, and you and I know from a marketing point of view, that's the hardest part of any job, is getting your foot in the door. Once you've got your foot in the door, there's so much opportunity there to inform and educate and retain and nurture. And it typically comes at the cost of, for whatever reason, probably laziness or maybe ignorance, but neglecting your existing customers and avidly seeking cold traffic. So we just constantly see people saying, we need more leads, we need more leads, we need more leads. And we go, you're sitting on a database of 6,000 people and you've never spoken to one of them. You don't need more leads. You need to get your priorities right. So it's an interesting dynamic. And in truth, it's a great way for businesses to save money, improve relationships, which they've already got. They just haven't applied enough resource to keeping them current, So recency and frequency, getting back in front of them with relevant information and whatever that might look like. But the point is touch points,
Yeah. I very aligned with everything that you've shared so far, and very aligned with our mission as a company.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you guys are onto an absolute winner there. I love the sound of it. So is there anything that we need to close off on, I suppose, in the, I mean, we've spoken a lot. We've spoken a lot about, some of that customer experience. We've spoken about ways that you can automate. Some of them you can use technology in what areas you can use technology. My question to you is, which parts of customer experience should you not automate and should you not use technology for?
Ooh, I think it's a great question. Look, software is eating the world. Software will become, pervasive in any industry, any vertical, over time. I think we're seeing that. So, automating, SMS or texting programs, automating payments, I think can become, very profitable opportunities in terms of cost and time saving. Things that may be less, easy, I guess, to automate, are things like scheduling or, lead conversion. Sometimes there is a personalization or personal touch that people need in this industry. For example, when it comes to scheduling, if it's a big job, there's something to be said about getting on the phone and just hearing kind of that voice of confidence, if you will. But I think there's probably a path where scheduling becomes automated as well. And that lead automation and, lead conversion on a website, maybe just don't automate the actual service itself. I don't think you want
I'm sending a drone out to clear your drain.
I don't think you would want I don't know if I'm ready for a robot to fix a drain, but it's probably good to have.
Ironically, it kind of is a robot that fixes your drain. It's just operated by a human. So
yeah, it's probably more having licensed skilled labor. Showing up in person, smiling. There's always going to be a human touch and a human element to inviting a stranger into your home. And those are things that technology can't really solve for today.
I think, like, from my experience, there's a lot of things you can kind of use in collaboration. So, for example, and of course, there's not every business out there is going to have resource available to be able to do this, especially in the early stages. But I've seen something that's really successful is, on job completion, if you've got somebody within the office, or even if it's yourself as the business owner, and maybe you don't do it for every single job, but certainly if you can get in the habit of doing it for a handful of them, like we used to call them happy calls, when essentially someone leaves the job, they've paid the bill, and then they get a personal phone call from one of the managers, say, hey, listen, just want to get some feedback on how the job went. What things do you think we could do better? And just put a touch to that. And then off the back of that, then you can implement technology. So, hey, listen, based on what you've told us, would you mind leaving us a review? Are you happy to leave us a review if we sent you our Google link?
Yes.
So you can kind of use them in conjunction,
Yeah, you've got to start. Any good process begins manually, right? And to your point, ask your office manager to get on the phone, call a customer, and ask them to leave a Google review, right? And we run into so many businesses that are doing this today. But then it's like, okay, well, how do I graduate to maybe more of an email that's sent out, or how do you automate those emails? And then if texting is more effective, and we can prove that we'll get a review that way, let me automate that and save that office manager's task and time for higher strategic value efforts and initiatives within the company.
Sure. I suppose, though, there's the point I'm trying to make is you can sometimes over automate things, and do I know that. I've over automated way too many things in the past, especially in relation to like processes within workflows within the business. Like, some things we've just pulled right back and said, nah, this is a contact point. This is your job as the manager. I want you to speak to that person at this point in this workflow every time. And it just, and yes, we can automate it. And yes, the automation side of things does work. But if the goal is to improve customer experience, we've found that certain points within that workflow, they have a much better experience through having a conversation with an actual person.
Yes, having a human touch. And again, those kind of more face value experiences, smiling, sending them cookies, handwritten thank you notes. There's certainly a lot of things that businesses can deploy in that aspect that can completely differentiate the company itself. It can differentiate as a company culture, making it a more attractive place where people want to work because, I think of locally here in Utah, we have Any Hour Plumbing. These guys are known for short sleeve white shirts and ties, and they show up to your house in a tie, and they're the best looking, most professional home service providers and, HVAC and plumbing in town. You think about that, you're like, oh, that's interesting way to differentiate that becomes memorable.
You'd think in Utah, the white shirt and black tie, they might get mixed up for someone else.
Yeah. I joked, I think the last time I ran into a few of those folks, it's, you just never know if they're going to church or going to work.
Yeah. Are you the plumber or are you Jehovah?
So yeah, definitely. But I think there's aspects to a business, where you can truly differentiate in your culture and the experience outside of tech that may just really be around something that's different. Dentist, my dentist has hot chocolate chip cookies, when you go there, and it's like, show me another, like, why would I ever go to another dentist when I know that?
Are they trying to drum up business, pumping you full of sugar and making your teeth rot?
You know what? I'm sold, and I'm happy to go back for next month's appointment. I'll just tell you that right now.
So there you go. So they've got you coming back monthly because they pump you full of chocolate chip.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe there's a deeper plan there, but yeah, all good thoughts and discussion for sure.
I think the like at the crux of it, and the thing that I encourage everyone out there to really, I'll say consider, but I'd prefer to say action, is just get an understanding of what your current workflow is, and then ascertain at which points of that you can what points of those you can automate from a customer communication and from a customer experience point of view. It won't be all of them, but you can certainly automate some of them, and some of them, again, you'll use in conjunction, like the example that I mentioned earlier. Like if the end goal really from the business point of view is to get a positive review, if you can improve that percentage by putting a phone call in front of the text message that's going out to them, sure, you could just send a text message and you might get one. But if you can put a phone call in front of that text message, you probably improve your percentage of getting that review. So yes, it takes more resource, but it depends on what your goal is, and how important it is to you. So I would just say to people, map out that journey and understand what it looks like. And you don't need technology for it. You could build on the back of a beer coaster for all that I care. But the point is just to get some sort of clarity around what's happening, so that you can make an educated call. Anyway, man, this has been great. So we may as well wrap this up, but I'm going to definitely put all the links to AllSet in the show notes. For you guys out there, the website's tryallset.com. Justin, it's been a great conversation, and good luck with the journey, man. I hope it all continues to carry on in leaps and bounds.
Thank you, Matt. I'd be remiss by my director of sales and marketing if I didn't share our offer. Is that something that I can present to the audience today?
Yeah, go for it.
Awesome. So AllSet is $199 per month. That's US dollars. We actually are lowering and offering an exclusive discount for listeners to this podcast to $125 per month. So to your point, head over to tryallset.com. It's a 30-day trial, and no commitments, no contracts. And if we can't help you improve, your revenue, your credit card processing fees, improving tips or reviews, then we're happy to part ways as friends. But love to. If you're a service provider, we'll see you on AllSet.
Do you and are you going to send through some information on that we can put in the show notes or links or something?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we'll have a link we can provide. And so excited to put that out there.
Yep. Do that. That'll be good. All right, listeners. There you go. You have no excuse now. So get out there and check it out. Justin, thanks again for your time. Look forward to chatting in the future, and keep on keeping on.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate your time.
That's a wrap. To get notified of our upcoming podcasts and videos, hit that subscribe button, turn your notifications on, and please, if you enjoyed this podcast, please give it a share with someone else that you think would benefit from it. And while you're there, why don't you leave us some comments as to your experience in relation to customer experience and some technology around that space.